come to life. We didn't finish with the end. We didn't go into the learning environment, and I believe there was still one more. Yeah, it was this one here, the monitoring and adjusting.
Okay.
And again, for the very teacher-centered actions, we have rarely utilizing input from the students in order to monitor, and we didn't see that in the video. We saw her systematically using the students' input to check for understanding, to see if the students needed more explanation or help, and we saw that through her implementation of think, pair, share. She didn't say think, pair, share. She's like, turn to your partner and, discuss.
Right.
They would just turn to their partner really quickly, and then she would check, go back, call on one or two of them. And then she
Mhm.
would ask, how many pairs, how many pairs talked about that or got that same answer? Give me a thumbs up. And so in addition to, checking for understanding with pockets of students, she checked for everyone. And then she also was having them use mini dry erase boards to do their work. And so they could hold it up. And some of them, didn't get it. And she was, able to help them, guide them through their mistakes to getting the answer before she moved on. So, let me see. So the other end of the spectrum, where it's super teacher centered, it's student centered instruction, you have the teacher systematically gathering input from the students, which we saw, in order to monitor instruction, pacing to allow for adjustments, to allow for clarification, adjusts instruction and activities to meet students' engagement. All of the students in that video were engaged, like 100% of the fourth graders were in it and discussing and actually being very successful with their work. Uses discrete explicit checks, just checking for understanding. Explicit, like I am, I'm checking and I know that I'm checking. And then discrete is like, you don't even know I'm checking for understanding. I'm just walking by and listening or hearing over your work, getting that feedback from the students and then giving it back to them, in something that's constructive. So the last dimension, right, which correlates for us in the exam with domain 2, all about the learning environment. And this is us creating, organizing a safe, accessible, and efficient classroom. So again, we're not going to do all of them, but we're going to look at the tail end with really needs improvement, very teacher-centered actions. It's like all about our comfort, what makes it easiest for us, as opposed to the student's comfort and what makes it easiest for them. So very few procedures and routines to guide student behaviors and maximize learning. Transitions are characterized by confusion and inefficiency. So this would be something that the appraiser would see. We're going between math and reading, the transition. If the students have procedures, routines, the transitions should be effective and they should not be chaotic, right? And remember that small children, ELL learners, special ed students, especially those three that I've just mentioned, that particular age group and those two special populations, the language learner and special ed students, they are going to experience stress and anxiety, confusion during transitions that don't have routines and procedures, that are chaotic in that way, and it will diminish their ability to perform and engage well with whatever activity comes afterwards. So having those in place is very, very important. And although we didn't see a transition in the video that we watched, somebody mentioned, I believe it was Mr. Torres, said, you can tell she has excellent classroom management. All the students knew what to do in each of the activities that they did. And so there was evidence that there are routines and procedures in place that made it to where the bulk of what we saw was just learning experience, because everybody knew what to do and how to do it. So very well done. So let's take a look. You establish and you use those effective routines and transitions and procedures that primarily rely on student leadership and responsibility. Students take primary leadership and responsibility for managing student groups, supplies, equipment. The class is safe and thoughtfully designed to engage, challenge, and inspire students to participate in high level learning beyond the learning objectives, beyond the classroom. And that's what we want. We want to make connections beyond and deepen the learning beyond just what we're doing. Managing student behaviors. And again, this is something that was mentioned last week, that the teacher that we saw, she had exemplary, student management, that there was no issues. Everyone was on task. She was always at the forefront or in the mix of the learning, and she just consistently was able to move on in between different parts of the lesson with no effort. So rarely or unfairly enforces campus or classroom behavior standards. Students' misbehavior impedes learning in the classroom, and that's when it's a really big deal, when the student behavior impedes on the actual instruction and learning of the rest of the classroom. And that's certainly not what we want. So managing student behavior is not just about keeping an orderly classroom, it's keeping a classroom that can learn. And when we have massive disruptions and a lot of chaos, then we know scientifically, research-based, that does not happen. It will not happen. So on the other end, very student-centered, the distinguished, they're going to consistently monitor behavior subtly, reinforcing positive behaviors appropriately, and intercepts misbehavior fluidly. Students and the teacher create and adopt and maintain classroom behavior standards. And so look at this. It said students and the teachers create. That creation of the classroom expectations, that conversation where you're just explaining, something to them. I read, I follow teacher Twitter, and there was a post, and a gentleman was saying that he was asking the students to do this particular strategy, and he needed for them to do it, and a lot of students weren't doing it. This was a fifth grade class, and he took the time to explain to them what the strategy was, why he needed for them to do it, and that it would make doing math easier later on. It's just like an exercise you would do in PE to make you running the mile easier. And after that, just after the explanation, he was like, guys, the kids just want to know why they're doing it. If they feel like it's like a nonsensical, this doesn't make sense, why am I doing this? That they are less likely to participate. Give them value and reason, talk to them, explain to them, build with them a consensus, especially for classroom behavior. And then we have the classroom culture. And I believe this, I know there's one. That's the roles and responsibilities. Classroom culture. The teacher leads a mutually respectful and collaborative class of actively engaged learners. And mutually respectful is the key word and phrase here. And that means we respect them and they respect us. And that has to be felt. There is no greater death to your credibility in the classroom if you go in there and they feel like you don't respect them. They're not going to just give it to you. And I guarantee you, at the bottom line, they just want respect too, to feel important, valued, seen, and welcome in your classroom. So in the improvement needed area, we have very teacher-centered actions. And you'll see as we go through, we get further and further away from teacher-centered all the way to student-centered. So this would establishes a learning environment where few students are engaged in the curriculum. Students are disrespectful of each other and of the teacher, and that can never be allowed. It can never be allowed that your students disrespect each other, and they will take the lead from you. If you are sort of short or annoyed with a student, and that student might be exhibiting annoying behavior, and it's difficult not to be annoyed, but we're literally paid to be held at a higher standard. We have to remember that they're children, and at the root of all bad behavior, there's a problem there that a student can't handle. And so a little bit of investigating, kindness, and consistency. Everyone must respect everyone. I'm going to respect you, you respect me, and we're going to respect each other collectively, because this is our team, Team Sauceda. And I always try to make it like us against all of the other class periods, and we're going to achieve these great things, us, this team, building that classroom culture to where, they will defend each other on the playground because that's their classmate, and we don't talk to each other like that. And that's the type of culture you want to build. So all the way to the, bright shining star, distinguished, deeply in the student-centered actions. Remember, we're making things easier for the students, not for ourselves. Anything that we do, we're thinking about the students first and foremost. Does this benefit them? Does this meet the needs of all my diverse population? Is this best practice? Consistently engaging all students with relevant, meaningful learning based on their interests and abilities to create positive rapport among students. Students collaborate positively and encourage each other's efforts and achievements. And so again, the distinguished teacher is going to have her classroom feel like they're a team. And in a team, you want everyone to succeed. You want everyone to be on their A game and everyone to understand. And a good team, the students will help each other and see a student struggling and be the person to be helpful. But again, that doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with you going in with a list of rules and saying, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. That is it feels very not like this is my classroom and this is just Miss Sauceda's classroom that I enter and this is the law that I have to abide by, rather than it being my classroom experience, our learning environment. And it's their learning environment, their experience. And I want my daughters to go through school and love each school year, to feel great. And there's ways a teacher can really do that for students, and there are many things that we can do to be off-putting. One of the major things in elementary is, do you yell at the students? My daughter does not like yelling. You know what I mean? It's not especially in school, and she'll have a bad day and they're not even yelling at her. She'll just say, like, my teacher was yelling at a group of kids a lot, and it freaks her out. It makes her feel uncomfortable. I don't yell at her, and it's just it's not an appropriate means of classroom management, not with children, not with adults. It's just not. There's a better way of speaking and engaging with the students. So being mindful of the things that we do, because the things that we do impact the classroom culture, the way that the class feels. Remember, the teacher is the barometer. They are the thermostat for the class. We set the mood, we set the temperature, and everyone's watching us. All students learn via modeling, all of them, which is why we have to model extensively. And they also learn behaviors via modeling. And we cannot control the behaviors that they see outside of our classroom, but we can certainly control the behaviors that they see inside of our classroom. So we need to be showing them mutual respect, kindness, consistency, understanding, and building that, classroom culture that is engaging and fruitful. It's going to be a fruitful experience if they feel comfortable and they are engaged. So do we have any questions on this? And then there's also the dimension dealing with our ethics, and we went over that pretty deeply, going over domain 4, but you guys can take a look at that one on your own, because we're going to switch over gears and go do some questions. So what I want for you guys to do, as always, we are going to read the question mindfully once, and then identify keywords or phrases that we feel are important to identifying the correct answer. So remember, sometimes on this PPR exam, they give you more than one correct answer.
Mhm.
And one is better, best, most appropriate based on the specifics that they say. And I forgot to say that we had 2 gentlemen pass the exam from last week. They took the exam last week. They've been coming to class, Zeke and Adrian Rodriguez, and they both passed, and they passed with like 253, 261. So they did well. Yeah, I invited them to come in, but I told them, don't worry if you can't. I understand.
Congratulations.
I know they did really, really well. Oh my goodness. I forgot someone really quickly. Let me go ahead and send them the link.
Congratulations to them, Miss Sauceda.
Absolutely. I'm so proud of them. I'm
Yes.
proud of all of you guys. You all will be on that end.
Ya te la puse.
Alrighty. Okay, so let us begin with this one. Miss Lewis, a kindergarten teacher, shows an unfamiliar storybook to a student. She asks the student to point to the title of the book and open the book to the first page of the story. After the teacher reads a few pages, she asks the student to point to the words. The teacher is most likely assessing the student's awareness that. Okay, so what keywords and phrases, what is important for us to identify here? Pay attention.
We have kindergarten teacher, kindergarten students.
Kindergarten teacher. So this is a kindergarten student, right? And this is an unfamiliar storybook,
Story.
right?
Mhm. And she asks the students to point to the title of the book and open the book.
So point to the title of the book, open the book to the first page of the story. After the teacher reads a few pages, she asks the students to point to the words. So we're looking for, our goal is, and it says most likely, so we should think that maybe they've given us more than one thing. We're assessing, what are we assessing? What part of the
awareness, students' awareness.
Let's take a look at the answer choices. A, different conventions are associated with different genres of literature. B, printed text corresponds to oral language. C, letters correspond to individual speech sounds. Or D, reading is an interactive process between the reader and the text. So what can we eliminate? Because that's not what they're doing here. This is a kindergartner, and we're just having them point at things, pointing to the title of the book, opening the first page, and then pointing to words. So we have.
I don't think A is a choice. I think
A
that's
is
what
absolutely. We can absolutely bet ourselves $5. They're not talking about conventions. Conventions are like what grammar, commas, comma splices, how we would use, the different conventions that we might use. And then we're not even talking about different genres of literature. That's different types of, autobiography, fiction, informational text, poetry, different genres. We're not doing any of that. It's just the children's book, one genre, and they're just pointing to the words in the title of the book and the words inside of the book. So what else?
We can eliminate D, reading is an interactive process between reader and the text.
Yes, we can eliminate that one. So they're not being interactive with the text.
The process between, yeah.
They're not doing that. They're just pointing to the words.
So we have B and C, right? Letter
Right.
cards.
I think it's B.
Print text cards.
Right. Are we looking at individual letters? Did she even say point to a letter and say the sound?
No.
She never did that. It is about printed text, the printed text on the title and the printed text within the, and connecting it to, like, that's what this is the words where the words are coming. They're coming from the words on this paper. She's connecting the printed text to the oral language that she's using for the kindergartners. Because remember, kindergartners can't read just yet. And so they're at the bottom, and we're making that connection. We're making that connection between what text is and speech. So let's take a look at this one, number 2. A 4th grade teacher prepares a group of students to listen to a story about a whale by asking them what they know about whales and writing the students' responses on the board. This activity is likely to facilitate comprehension of the story, primarily because it will, excellent, 4th grade. I see you already have it up on the board. What else is important? What else is she doing here? What is she, can anyone tell me what strategy she's using here?
Asking them, she's assessing what they know.
Yeah, what part of this is a strategy we use often in our classes. what they know here is important.
That activating prior knowledge.
Activating prior knowledge. That's what she's doing. She's saying, what do you already know prior to our discussion, prior to our reading of the story? This is utilizing the K part of the KWL strategy. What do you know? What do you wonder? What did you learn? So these two are done before the lesson. The L is done after the lesson. So she's doing the K portion of it. She's asking, what do they know about whales? We're asking, or the question is asking, what is this likely to help facilitate? How is it helping facilitate comprehension? What is it doing? And I think that we had,
El prior knowledge, how does it help?
Yeah, so let's take a look at the answer choices. A, prompt students to learn more about the topic. B, encourage the students to use metacognitive strategies. C, integrate oral and written vocabulary skills. D, connect new information to the students' background knowledge. Now, what can we bet ourselves? $5 is not the right answer.
To learn more about the topic. In C, integrating oral and written vocabulary. We're not talking nada que ver vocabulary.
Absolutely nothing to do with vocabulary skills. Nothing.
And then
So bet
B,
ourselves
we're not
$100.
talking about metacognition.
No, they're not. They're not thinking about their thinking and what they've read. So they're not employing metacognition strategies. There you go underneath. That's exactly right. Background knowledge. We were saying that what they know is getting them to activate prior knowledge, that the students' background knowledge is their prior knowledge. We're trying to connect the new information that we'll be doing in the lesson with things they already know. And KWL is a really easy way of doing that, because we're literally asking them, what do you guys know about this? And if they don't know much, what do you wonder about it? And then go into, it's like a very, I'm telling you, easy peasy lemon squeezy way of being mindful that you are connecting prior knowledge, the student's background knowledge in the area, the content, to the lesson. Excellent job, guys. All right. Which of the following activities performed by young children while a story is being read to them would most likely encourage them to listen for meaning? Okay, what keywords and phrases? Young children, excellent. So EC, what is the goal here? What are we trying to figure out? What are we looking for when we're assessing the kids?
Engagement, encourage them to listen.
For what? Listen for what?
For meaning.
For meaning. For meaning, another way, what's another way of saying for meaning? So if I'm reading a story and I want to make sure that you're
Comprehension.
Yeah, it's comprehension. We're trying to check comprehension on the students. Their list, she wants to find a way to have the students to see if they are comprehending, if they're understanding the story. So which of the following activities it's listed performed, meaning they're going to do something, perform for us, would help us, identify their understanding of meaning, would encourage the students to listen for meaning, to listen to understand. So tapping their feet to words, tapping their feet to the rhythm of the words, miming the action of the story, raising their hand when they hear the main character's name, making a clay sculpture of their favorite character. Okay, so which one of these can we bet is not the right answer?
Oh, not.
Tapping their feet.
Yeah, this will tell us nothing about meaning.
Nothing, nada que ver.
Yes, nothing to do with meaning. What else can we eliminate? Because it's not a performance or an activity in which they are performing.
Raising their hand when they hear the main character's name.
Right.
This is just raising their hand.
Exactly. And it just has to do with the main character. So obviously they if they do that, they know the main character's name, but that won't tell us anything about did they understand what's going on in the story. So we're left
So
with C and D.
I believe we can eliminate B because doing a performance, the students while a story is being read in their minds, they're thinking the
Right.
meaning
So
what
which one did you want to eliminate, D or B?
I want to eliminate B because I think that by making a clay sculpture of their favorite character is they're doing a performance.
Are you sure? Because
I think it's B.
Mimicking.
yeah, so B is miming, and that's just when you pretend to do the action. So like if I'm reading Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and I'm saying, and Goldilocks gets to the door and she knocks, and then the kids will do the knocking mime, and then she opens the door, and they might pretend to open a door, and she walks in, and she gets mad that it's too small or too big. So the children would be showing me the actions from the story through their movements.
Yes, now I understand.
Yeah.
Yes, I
And
understand.
miming is quiet. So it's a quiet action. Remember, there's no talk, so it wouldn't be disruptive. And that's actually a strategy that we do use with students to engage them to understand. And it's also an easy way for us to check for understanding, right? It'll be very easy to look out and see what student is confused. They'll be looking at their peers, and won't be looking up front. So it's a great activity for our smaller kids to check for understanding. All right, I'm going to move this down because I think it goes with the next one. All right, so we have a middle school teacher plans the following activities in connection with a field trip to view a photojournalism exhibit at a local museum. Before the trip, students study how elements of design and photographic techniques express ideas and communicate meaning. The teacher gives students a list of questions to read and consider as they view the exhibit. After the trip, students work in small groups to write answers to the questions. In a whole class discussion, students share their reactions to the exhibits and their group's answers to the questions. Okay, so that's what they did. And here's the question. Which of the following additional activities would best help the teacher informally assess students' understanding of the way visual images and elements of design create meaning? All right, let us go back and see what keywords and phrases.
Middle school teacher.
Middle school for sure.
Activity in connection with the field trip.
Right, activities. And we are looking for an assessment. So these are the activities that are in connection. And we want an additional activity that would best help the teacher informally assess the student's understanding of the way visual images and elements of design create meaning. How visuals and elements of design create meaning. So let's take a look. I'm going to, erase these so I can move it up. Let's take a look at our answer choices. We have A, students work in small groups to prepare their own exhibits by using photographs from newspapers and magazines to tell a story. B, each student researches one photojournalist featured at the exhibit and presents a brief report on the photojournalist's work in the field. C, students write an essay about the photojournalism exhibit at the museum, analyzing a particular photograph they liked. D, each student writes a simulated magazine article and creates a drawing or illustration to accompany the article. Okay, so again, we are looking for, let me go back and highlight some of this stuff. We are looking for an additional activity to assess the student's understanding that visuals, images create meaning, can be used to create meaning. So a way to informally assess them. And we know the other activities that they've already done. They wrote answers to questions in small groups. They had those questions while they were in the exhibit. They had a whole class discussion. They shared their reactions and the answers to the questions. Now we want a way to informally assess them to see if they understand that visuals can be used to create meaning. So which one of these can we eliminate, because that's not what they're doing?
Students work in a group. Your students research features. Write an essay for students.
A.
You want to eliminate A?
I'm thinking maybe eliminating C, about the essay.
Right. So writing an essay about a particular photograph that they liked has nothing to do with the student understanding that visuals create meaning. They just might say, I liked it. Those are my favorite colors. So yeah, C, we can eliminate and bet ourselves $5. That is not
Also D, eliminate D.
Eliminate D. So each student writes a simulated magazine article and then creates a drawing. Again, that will not show us that they understand that visuals can be used to create meaning. Just visuals. We're left with A and B. Students work in small groups to prepare their own exhibits by using photographs from newspapers and magazines to tell a story using photographs. Or B, each student researches one photojournalist featured at the exhibit and presents a brief report on the photojournalist's work in the field.
A would be the answer because it's visual.
Absolutely. And B is not doing that. B is not making that direct connection between it's about photojournalism. Yes. Will there be visuals and talk about visuals? Yes. But it will not be the easiest way to assess, or any way to assess, actually. Yeah. Assess that the students understand that pictures themselves say things, send messages, carry meaning of their own. Students working in small groups to prepare their own exhibits using only photographs from newspapers and magazines to tell a story. So in A, the teacher will be able to assess if they understood the power that visuals hold in creating meaning. Well done, guys. All right, here is one of our just assessment type questions, short and sweet, but nonetheless sometimes confusing. Which of the following is the most appropriate reason to use curriculum-based assessments? So what keywords and phrases, what's important for us to?
Appropriate.
Most appropriate for sure. And what else? What particular type of assessment?
Curriculum based.
Curriculum based. And what does this mean, curriculum based?
It means that you're assessing what is written in the curriculum.
Absolutely. So our curriculum in the state of Texas is the same for literally everyone in Texas. You're a Texas public school teacher, the curriculum is the TEKS. It's where we go to get our learning objectives, our academic objectives. And so, and obviously we bring in other things from our district, but it all has to adhere and be aligned and stem from the TEKS. So what would be the most appropriate reason to utilize curriculum-based assessments? So let's take a look. To confirm the student's grade level, to identify skills that need reteaching, to compare with last year's test scores, to determine the student's intellectual ability. Now, what can we eliminate so quickly and bet ourselves $5 is not the right answer?
D.
D for sure. D. We're
C.
not C. We're not comparing. And what would we use? What would we use? What type of assessment would we use to compare? last year's test scores.
Star
'Cause
scores.
Excuse me?
Would it be star scores or?
Absolutely, star. So when I first started teaching, we were doing the TOS tests, and then it was TAX, and then it was EOC, then it was star, and now it's just stayed star. So in each of those different assessments, at the beginning of the year, one of the things that I did have before I even saw my students was access to their scores from the year before. And although that's not super like in depth as far as information on my students, it did give me a starting point to see like where are they before they entered the classroom. And then I could tell for myself, where are they? Because those standardized assessments are not good about testing our students' strengths or showing our students' strengths. So it just gives us a baseline, and then we have to super build that data on our students specifically based on our interactions and based on our curriculum based assessments, what we're doing in the class and what they're able to do. So we're left with A and B. Which one of these can we eliminate and which one can we keep?
I would eliminate A.
Yes. First of all, there's no need to confirm the student's grade level, and it doesn't matter. Are they not on grade level? Well, it doesn't matter because they have to be tested on grade level. So regardless if they're special ed, regardless if they're ELL, regardless if they're a struggling student who might be maybe they're in 4th grade, but they're on a 2nd grade reading level, they still have to take the 4th grade reading test. So it doesn't matter what grade level in parentheses, the grade level they're in is their grade level. And it's the grade level that we teach to. So it is a means for us to identify in class what needs to be retaught. It's a way of us gathering data more so than any test score can give us, more data than any test score can give us, standard test score. All right. Miss Smith stops the class after just a few minutes of mathematics instruction, which is taking place at the board. She asks 2 questions requiring simple student responses on note cards. After quickly reviewing the cards, Miss Smith returns to instruction at the board. Which type of assessment is the teacher using? So what keywords and phrases are here for us to let us know, to identify what she's doing? When does this assessment take place? So this is an assessment that she's giving, right? She is assessing them. When is this assessment taking place?
After a few minutes of
Right,
instruction.
Right. So it's during instruction, right? During the actual instruction. And from our definitions, we should know there's, 2 main types of assessments, and one takes place before and during, and one takes place after all learning has taken place. So this is information to help us. So after she quickly reviews, then she goes back. She returns. So it's like in the middle of instruction, during instruction. Which one of these is she using? Summative, formal, formative, or alternative? What can we eliminate? Because that's not what she's doing here. That's not the type of assessment she's using.
Can eliminate A. This is not at the end.
Right. It's not at the end after all learning has taken place, right? The end of the year, at the end of the semester. So it's not in summation, not summative. What else could we get rid of?
Alternate. We can eliminate D.
It's not an alternate assessment. And we're left with formal and formative.
What does alternate assessment means, Miss Sauceda? Alternate, like one.
So let's say I had my students take a scene from Romeo and Juliet, and they have to like act it out in modern times, like have the same dialogue phrases but in modern terms or whatever. And that would be an assessment that I would give them to see if they understood the scene, right? And it would be alternate because it's not an assessment like that we would use. For instance, a different type of assessment that is still an assessment, but it's not the traditional sense of assessment. So having them put on a performance, write and put on a performance would be an alternate. Having them, you know, do even a portfolio would be an alternative type of assessment. Compiling their artwork together to turn in would be an alternate, like their best artwork would be an alternate type of assessment. We're still assessing them, but it's not in the traditional sense. And with alternate assessments, we have to provide rubrics. The rubric has to be explicit. It has to be discussed with the student in detail, providing examples, showing them how they can master this assessment, because it's not just a normal assessment where you get answers right or answers wrong. There's other things that we're looking at in the alternative assessments, and those things need to be laid out clearly, discussed explicitly in order for students to do well.
Thank you, Ms.
Did you
Sauceda.
get rid of formal?
Yeah, it's not a formal assessment in any sense of the word. It's very informal, actually. So it's a formative assessment, and formative assessments form our instruction. They drive our instruction. And we do them before and during instruction, before and during the learning process.
So
And
what does that mean in regards in context to this question? Like, how is this assessment formative?
it's formative because it takes place during the instruction, before and during, and it helps form her instruction. So she asks questions to check for understanding, and then she returns to instructing. Depending on the answer she got will dictate what she does next in her instruction. And that's what formative instructions are, assessments are meant to do. They're meant to drive out or form the way in which we're going to instruct based on the student's needs. And they can be informal and they can be formal. There's many different types of informal formative assessments. This is one of them. You know, the video that we watched last class, the teacher had them raise thumbs up if they got the answer right, or she had them hold up the actual dry erase board. That was a formative informal assessment. Formal formative assessments are, you know, questions that they're responding to, quizzes, those types of traditional assessments that we think of that are more formal, essays. But formatives, they help form. So she's absolutely using formative assessments here because she's doing it during the instruction. And formative always takes place before or during instruction, and it helps drive
formative
instruction and planning.
Are formative assessments usually like an action? Like either like writing or like putting your thumb up? Like,
no, because it could just be you walking around and you are listening to them in their small group. And that's an informal formative assessment.
I'm just getting tripped up on like the word form. Like I just don't understand how that correlates to.
Only informative.
Yeah, formative. The way that it helps you form, it helps you like create and form the lesson based on the needs of the students, like the data you collect from that. And so sometimes it's not at all an action where the students are working in cooperative learning groups and you're walking around listening to their discussions, and I might listen and see that the students, maybe I'm having them identify diction in a poem and they're analyzing together, and I'm seeing that they're not actually choosing diction words, they're just choosing words. So I might hear that and go back to the board and say, okay guys, it seems like we're a little bit confused as to what makes a good diction word, like what makes something diction. So let's take a look at this, and I might go back and reteach real quickly and do a I do, we do, so that we can go back to them, they do it.
Oh, so it's like taking what you're teaching, and then if they misunderstand or misinterpret what the lesson is about, then you kind of like go over it again in a
Reteach or
different
expand,
way.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I get it now. Okay. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Oops. Okay, which of the following strategies would be most effective for providing job training to a student with intellectual disabilities for work as a server in a fast food restaurant? Obviously, this is high school. Let's take a look at this one. This one's good for many reasons. So we're looking for strategies. What other keywords and phrases are important?
Most effective.
Most effective, meaning they might give you more than one effective. In fact, yes.
So
Intellectual
this is
disabilities. That's a
and
specific disability. And what else?
we want to provide job trainings.
Job training is the goal. Job training in a fast food restaurant for a student with intellectual disabilities. I will remind you before we read the answer choices that the PPR and all of the Texas exams, they are theoretical exams. In theory, you should be able to do all of the best things, the best practices without the limitations of the real world. Remember, this is best practice, Utopia High School, Utopia Middle School, Utopia Elementary, where anything is possible. There's no limitations. Let's take a look. Pairing the student with an employee who can work beside the student and model the required tasks. B, making a list of job tasks for the student to refer to as necessary throughout his or her work shift. C, carefully explaining the steps of the job to the student and checking on the student at regular intervals. Or D, simulating the work environment and practicing the job sequence in the classroom. What can we eliminate? Because that's not best practice for a student with intellectual disabilities. And that's the biggest keyword and phrase.
B, making a list.
B, making a list. This is not going to be helpful. First of all, students with intellectual disabilities, not only do lists not work, you have to break down the list into smaller, more manageable chunks. And you're certainly not going to give them a list of things and then walk off and then just check on them as need be throughout a work shift. That's going to be a recipe for disaster, even for a student without intellectual disabilities. But we have a student with intellectual disabilities, so we know that that is not best practice. What else can we eliminate?
We can eliminate D, stimulating the environment and practicing the job sequence.
Okay. Let's eliminate D. Why is D not the best answer?
Because it's in the classroom and it's not actually at the place that they're doing it.
Exactly. And you have to take into consideration the environment. The work environment is important, especially for special ed students. They need training with the tasks and getting used to the environment. There's going to be bells, timers going off, customers sort of shouting things maybe, or other people, just different things that are going to be going on. The simulation of the work environment, while it can be useful, is not going to be the most effective course of action to get a student with intellectual disabilities ready for a job, in fast food industry. So D, we can eliminate and pretty confidently say it's not the right answer. What else? We're left with A and C, which I've never been left with A. I'm always left with A and D.
We can eliminate A, and I think carefully explaining the steps of the job to the students and checking on the student at regular internal will be best.
So you want to eliminate A and keep C?
No.
No, I think it's
Because A is the answer because you have to model the task for the student. If you just explain the steps and then leave and then just check on them randomly, they might get confused.
Right. Actually,
This is regular.
B and C are very similar together.
Yes.
And actually C's possibly worse, because at least with B they had like some writing to go back on, but explaining something, we cannot ever just explain something. It has to be modeled, it has to be shown, it has to be practiced. We have to give it to them in writing also. So in all actuality, in the real world, we would have A happen. A would be best practice. Obviously getting that to happen would be difficult, and you'd have to do some talking with a local fast food restaurant. But that pairing of the student where they can model this, the modeling is the big key word. Modeling is the big key word to make this correct, the required task, because they're there for the job training. They can see, and the person is also going to be talking to them, explaining stuff to them as well. This is going to provide them the most in-depth job training. Plus, guys, it's in the actual environment. It's at the fast food restaurant. They're with the employee themselves, working beside them, getting feedback from them, being able to ask questions. That is best practice. Now, we would also, possibly practice with them, when they got into the classroom, but the most effective job training would be in the real world, paired with someone who is the knowledgeable other, right? The most knowledgeable other. That's Vygotsky's, zone of proximal development. The most knowledgeable other in this scenario is the employee. They know how to work fast food restaurant, and they're the best person to model and work with the student to provide that training. Good job, guys.
I have a question or a
Yes.
comment. So like if we're speaking about like a utopia environment, I feel personally that, wait, can you just go back to the
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So I feel like in a utopia like world, I feel like, a bunch of them would be the correct answer, because I feel like for students especially with intellectual disabilities, you would probably have to,
Reinforce. You're absolutely right.
do
You're
it in
absolutely
the class, do it in the classroom,
right.
and when you get there, do the modeling, and then after you do the modeling, have everything like written down on a piece of paper or something, so that way they can go home and like review it for
That absolutely would be best practice. But unfortunately, they didn't ask us that there. They're just wanting, we could only choose one, but that's how they get us with these, because all of these are not, obviously we would carefully explain things, but that wouldn't be the best way. Just like if we can only choose one, that's not it. We would do an amalgam of these, right? A combination of many of these. Of course, I would want for them to get that real world training. I would also want to hope to have a place in my campus where they could practice those things. And they should also have a list that has been shortened and chunked together for easier understanding for a student to reflect back on after they've done A while they're doing D. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, I just wanted to ask because I knew A was the answer,
Right.
but I just was thinking like in a utopia or like a real world situation, I feel like they would need a bunch of that.
They absolutely would. You're right. Okay, so let's take a look at number 8. We have, sorry, I just spilled stuff. So let's see. Yeah, we have 2 more questions here for us. So 8, early in the school year, the students in a 5th grade class have been demonstrating exclusionary behavior. There are 2 dominant cliques, and there are several children, including 2 with disabilities, who are generally treated as outcasts. When considering how to respond, the classroom teacher should be aware that what? So let's take a look at the keywords and phrases. What's important for us? Early. Thank you. It's early in the school year. Anytime they give you a time marker, it's important. When is this taking place? Before, during, after, early, late? It matters. So early in the school year. What else is important for us? 5th graders.
Exclusionary behavior.
Yes, exclusionary behavior could be bullying, keeping people out, excluding them. Any of these are a no-go for a conducive, classroom, a classroom that's conducive to learning and to feeling safe and to feeling accepted. So we obviously know that something needs to be done, right? Especially given what? There are several
the 2 students with disabilities.
2 students with disabilities are part of that group that are being left out. Not okay. They're treated as outcasts. No, this cannot be. So we have to respond. What is it that we should be aware of when we are considering how to respond to the students? Let's take a look. A, in such situations, it's generally best to let students work out issues amongst themselves rather than to intervene in their social relationships. B, the most effective response would be to ask the parents of the students in the cliques to apply disciplinary measures if their children continue the exclusionary behavior. C, his or her response should be aimed primarily at bolstering the resilience and self-assertiveness of the children with the lowest social status. D, it is imperative to institute a program specifically designed to build a learning community in which all students feel safe and accepted. All right. What can we eliminate? Because absolutely not. We're not doing that.
B. And B. I would eliminate B.
B for sure. We're not going to tell, you need to ground your son because he's not. First of all, it happened in class and it is literally our job, our classroom community, our classroom environment to rectify. Yes, we have
A.
parents as partners. A. Why is A not the right answer?
Because you're just letting them work it out for themselves. I think in certain situations that would be okay, but in the question it says they're treated like outcasts. So
That's not
definitely
okay. And you know what? They're fifth graders, and fifth graders don't know everything about everything. And they are learning how to be in social settings, in group settings, and work with each other. Part of our job is social emotional learning, right? The way in which you interact with other people, feel about yourself and other people, and the things that you do. So absolutely, it is our job to intervene, especially in these early ages. And you're right, there are some times where it's best for like a pair of students to work out a disagreement. Like, I'm not going to play referee between two friends. I might talk to them, but it's their job to work it out amongst themselves. This is a group of students excluding another two dominant cliques of the two groups of students, that are being exclusionary or bullying with students, and some of them have disabilities, and that is not okay. And we would never allow the students to just, figure it out for yourself. They're in fifth grade. They absolutely need our help on this one. So we're left with C and D. Which is the best answer? Which one of these feels off to you?
D is the best answer.
D is the best answer. C only focuses on, and I hate this wording here, and the right answer is never going to use wording like this. So the students with the lowest social status, but this is only helping the students that are being bullied. And honestly, the two dominant cliques of bullies need help too, because they are not behaving like they should, and like is going to be conducive to having a healthy and happy life. And it is our job to make sure all students are doing okay. And even though they're not the ones hurting, they're not okay, the dominant clique. So this doesn't respond to the clique. It just responds to the kids getting bullied. Like, don't feel bad, you're so great, and you're, stick up for yourself, tell them this and that. Like, that is not enough to fix the situation. D, and because it's early in the school year, this teacher has the ability to turn this cart around, and it's imperative to institute a program specifically designed. And that program you build yourself, you build it with your learning community by having conversations about what the expectations are for the way that we treat each other in this class, and building that, again, community of learning, that culture of acceptance, that culture of togetherness, and we are a team, and we don't make fun of each other, and we certainly don't let anybody else make fun of us. So D, the best answer. Oops. All right, for our last one, we have a middle school special education teacher has been teaching students with learning disabilities how to use chapter headings, subheadings, indexes, and glossaries in their textbook when doing content area reading. The greatest benefit of this approach, of the approach the educator is using, is that. So what do we have here?
Middle school.
Middle school.
Special
ed. So we know she's a special ed teacher, so we know that she has special ed students, and some of them have learning disabilities. So she's teaching them how to use chapter headings, subheadings, indexes, glossaries in their textbook when they're doing content area reading, content specific readings. And they're asking us for the greatest benefit. What's the main reason or the biggest takeaway that the students will get? A, promotes the students' use of critical thinking skills. B, enables students to synthesize new information quickly. C, encourages the students to relate new information to prior knowledge. And D, gives students tools for taking control of their own learning. So what can we eliminate and bet ourselves $5 is not the right answer? What are they not doing here?
I would say A, not a choice.
Yeah, they're not using critical thinking skills at all. Like, it's not promoting that. What else is not happening here?
I would say maybe C is also not the right answer.
C, why? Why is C not the right answer and we can bet ourselves $5 it's not?
They're talking about prior knowledge in this, and the going through the book and with headings and subheadings and all of that, that isn't talking about prior knowledge.
Right. We have not ignited any prior knowledge in the students at all. She's just direct instructing how to use the different features within this textbook. So no prior knowledge in our scenario. Therefore, C is absolutely wrong.
D is not the answer.
D, you want to eliminate D? Why do you think B is a better answer than D?
Because
what does synthesize new information quickly mean?
It means that when you're looking at chapter headings and index glossaries, that's like the fastest way to find information.
But synthesizing means bringing together all the different things, like bringing together, like when we sit, like when you write a synthesis paper, let's say I gave you 3 articles and you write a synthesis, you have to take from each of those three papers and bring in together in one argument. So it's like bringing together or creating something from your knowledge. And are they doing that here just by learning the chapter headings and subheadings?
No,
they're not yet. They're not doing that. Maybe if they were, like I said, they could be better able to synthesize quickly once they're good at it and become proficient, and they can look for this information here to put this with this information that I was at the end of the book. But the greatest benefit for this is not their ability to synthesize new information quickly. It's their ability to look up things themselves, to take control. So if they have a question, they can utilize the index or the glossary, or use subheadings to try to find would the answer I'm looking for or the question that I have be in this area. It allows them to unlock the features of the textbook and take more control of their understanding, of their learning.
Okay.
D is the correct answer. All right, guys, y'all did amazing today. These were challenging. And I again applaud you as always for coming in on a Saturday, spending an hour and a half with me and working through these. So I appreciate you, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Ms. Sauceda, will these be in the Google Drive?
Yes, ma'am. I've put them there already.
Okay. I was having a little trouble with Google Drive. Do you have you do have me to have access to it, right? To the Google Drive? I should be able to, because I don't know, I don't have.
Yes, I'll resend it to you. You should have access to it. If you don't, I'll send it to you now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sauceda, for everything, and thank you for all your help.
Yes,
really,
absolutely. It's my
Miss
pleasure.
Sauceda, I wanted to talk to you after class. I'm sorry.
Sure. No problems. It's my pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes, I needed to talk to. Pícala, ahí está el mic.
Thank you, Miss Sauceda.
Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your weekend.
You too, ma'am.
Hold on,
Enjoy
guys.
your, enjoy your weekend, Sauceda. Enjoy your.
Hold on 1 second, guys.
Last year you were in Florida. Yes, you were. You were with us.
Okay, I'm back.
Yes,
Hello,
Yes.
Miss.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Miss Ennis. So I wanted to apologize
Oh,
for not
no,
coming
not
to.
at all. Not at all. Let me actually, I haven't stopped my
Oh,
recording.
sorry.